I call it the paradox of success. That the open-mindedness you can plot over the course of an athlete's career and probably associate it with gold medal achievement. That open-mindedness is through the roof when they're on the up, and when they're bronze medaling, silver medaling. When they become a gold medalist, they start saying, "Oh, I'm not sure about this idea that you've concocted now." And then the crystallization of the training program prior to becoming Olympic champion is something that's very difficult to then penetrate, particularly when you then have to change or there's a greater pressure to change. That might be a stimulus for it. But I think one of the antidotes for that, particularly if you can be anticipatory around it, is to instill good debriefing methods. That means that after a small competition, you debrief. What could we do differently? What are the gaps? What are your reflections? After a
Right.
medium and a high level competition, it becomes habitual that you're looking for that change. So you're ingraining it early. That's my thoughts.
Right, right. Well, there was a great cross country skier in Norway named Bjorn Dæhlie. He's still alive, but he's no longer active skier. But he won 8 gold medals in the Olympics, and for a long time he was the most winning skier. And he said at one point, he says, "Look, uh, world champion or gold medalist is something that I have been, and it's something that I can be again, but it's not something I am." And that was his attitude, in the sense that to avoid that, what should I say, inertia, that thinking I am a gold medalist. He says, I have been one, I can be one again, but I will have to continue to renew myself. And so that was, I thought,
That's nice.
a very good way to think about things. And that is one of the things that has, if you go into these athletes like Redgrave, like Daly, like there was a famous Norwegian cross biathlete, with so many world championships over so many years, is that they are able to the find a reason to renew themselves, find motivation in small changes and small additional, improvements, never being satisfied. If the athlete gets satisfied, then probably they're soon ready to move on to another arena. There's a certain degree of dissatisfaction or not being, still feeling like is room for improvement, that seems that I, find fascinating with those athletes that have the really long careers, that have, win multiple times. At least in that rare echelon, they'll say that, it's the second gold medal that's really tough. Not the first. The first one is tough, but the second one, in other words, to maintain the level of commitment and motivation and renewal and innovation to be able to improve and win again and again, that's phenomenal stuff.
Yeah, well, Steve said to me very early on. I asked him what he thought of all this sports science stuff, and he said, "You're the first person to ask me," which is a different topic, which is not a good thing. But he
Yeah.
also said, "Don't turn up and tell me that your study on college athletes is going to apply to me." Um, he, I won in '84 when we trained part time interval sessions. We trained full time and did a lot of interval sessions, and won in '88. We changed the training loads to low intensity work with Jürgen Grobler's regime in '92, and we won. And then we added weights for '96, and we won again. So don't tell me you've got a special training regime. You just need to do lots of it, and some variety here and there. And that was his
Right.
simple big picture view as to this is what I need to commit to. And
Yeah.
you sports scientists are a little bit annoying when you turn up and say you've got a special insight that threshold training works.
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
it's a way of life that they adopt and adapt to, I think.
yeah, and equally the big pressure that he felt. He had a winning method at 37 years old. Is that right? No, 36 years old. he had diabetes, which meant that we then had to
Mm,
focus on training volume, but in smaller bursts and dietary interventions around that.
right,
That
right,
was the
right.
big change that happened, but volume stayed. It was the manner and the sort of portions of training that changed, the shorter bursts.
Yeah, and we can. There are some reasonable case studies. I guess you never published anything on Redgrave that I know of,
No,
but
no, didn't.
the Kiwi, what is it? The Kiwi pair. There's a wonderful case study on. They were a dominant pair, and there are some. And what that also that study points to is just evolution, that they had to adapt to changing bodies, changing life situations. A back injury on the one that changed the way he accumulated volume. He had to ease up on his rowing to protect his back, but they managed to, navigate around these issues and continue to win. That pair, I think, was, what was it? How many times they won without being defeated? They weren't defeated in 100 races or something.
Mm.
But their training did change across over time. There were some foundational similarities, but there was some adjustments. Just the fact that the athlete 10 years prior and the athlete today is not the same person. It's the same person, but they do not respond to training the same way. Their epigenetics may even be different. You know what I'm saying? There's so much that you have to take into account. So even within the same athlete, you can't say, "Well, I have the recipe," because it's a continuously evolving human that you're working with.
Let me take that point about small changes to ask you maybe the last question, because I'm conscious that we've been nattering away for quite a while now, and maybe wrap this up a little bit. But you made this point earlier about the transfer of this differentiated, polarized approach, but also matching it and observing it in other fields. And I'm I'm thinking about the idea of habits and automaticity, where well over, if not higher than 95% of our working day, we do things that are automatic. We have a routine. We don't really need to be engaging the frontal cortex too much. It's habitual. But the other 5% is an important bit that we need to make sure we're protecting, and that we're focused and we're delivering and that we're meticulous. What's your observations about the narrative of what you've discovered in elite training habits and how it links to the broader human behavior, human performance?